Hi guys, welcome back to a brand new video, and this is part 2 of addition of fractions. Okay, so we're gonna jump straight in, and I'm gonna put up an example with two different denominators. And as you can quite clearly see here again, we have an odd number and an even number. Now in the last video I spoke about actually doing the timetables for both of our denominators. Just want to teach you a little trick, which is a very easy trick. If you don't want to go down the route of writing out the factors for both of these numbers, you can simply just multiply them by each other. This is also a very easy method to go by. So you multiply the 5 by 8 and the 8 by 5, okay? And obviously what you do to the denominators, you need to do to the numerators. So we're gonna go about doing that, and quite simply we can say now that we can start on this side, and we can say that 5 times 2 is 10, and 5 times 8 is 40. And there we go there, 5 times 8 we know is 40. And there at the bottom here, 5 times 8 is 40, okay? So what we do is now we have a common denominator as we discussed last time around. And we can add our numerators. So that leaves us with 50 over 40. Okay, and now we have one more step to do to get the sum simplified. And what we need to do is we need to find our HCF, okay? Our highest common factor. Right, so what will my highest common factor be in this case? Your highest common factor is going to be 10. So we're going to divide both our numerator and denominator by 10. Okay, so we know now that 10 goes into 50 5 times, and 10 goes into 40 4 times, and you're left with 5 quarters. Okay, so this was one way to go about the sum. The other way would be, and I can show you, we can just remove this quickly, and I can show you the other method we could have gone with. Okay, so let me just erase this for you over here. Actually, let's just start afresh. So we're gonna go again with a 2 over 8 plus a 5 over 5, okay? So another method we could have made use of here was turning this fraction into 1. Because you know 5 goes into 5 once, right? So that means you're sitting with 2 over 8 plus 1. Okay? Now if you did not know, any number has a denominator of 1. Okay? So what you could have done was, you could have placed the 1 and made it a fraction as 1 over 1. So any whole number, doesn't matter what the number is, it has a denominator of 1. So here we could have just said times 8 times 8 to make our denominators the same. Okay, so what would we have had here now? We keep our 2 over 8 because we didn't work with it. Okay, that's a 2 over 8 right there. plus 1 times 8, that's going to give you 8. And 1 times 8, that's going to give you 8. Okay, so what you're sitting with now here is 10 over 8, right? So we added 2 plus 8, which is 10, and we keep our denominator the same. And then we do a highest common factor again, and in this case the highest common factor would be 2. So divide 2. Okay, that would be our HCF. Right, and that's going to give you 2 goes into 10 5 times, and 2 goes into 8 4 times. And as you can see, again, we have a answer of 5/4. Okay, so that was addition of fractions. Okay, and as promised, we said we're gonna go into subtraction of fractions. Okay, so subtraction of fractions has the same process, the same method as addition. Okay, so we can go for something like a half minus a quarter. Okay, let's start small. So similarly with addition, a subtraction has exactly the same process. Okay, so number one, we know make the denominators the same. Okay, make the denominators the same. As we can see here, guys, they are different. Okay, they are not the same. But how do we go about making them the same? We find our lowest common multiple. Okay, so number 2 is find the LCM. Okay, we're gonna find the LCM. Right, then our LCM in this case is 4, right? Because we know 2 times 2 and 1 times 2 is gonna give me the same denominator. Okay, so what do we do here? We can say 2 times 1 over there is going to give you 2, and 2 times 2 is going to give you 4. You keep your subtraction sign there. You're basically just bringing it down. Okay, and then the whole quarter over here you can bring down. Okay, remember I said you can also multiply this by 1 if you also want to work with this fraction. So we know that 1 times 1 is 1, and 4 times 1 is 4. Okay, and as we can quite clearly see there, that they are now the same. Okay, so the next step now would be number 3. We will have to subtract the numerator. Okay, we will subtract our numerators. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to say common denominator of 4, and we're going to go 2 minus 1 on the numerator, and that is going to give us a quarter, because 2 minus 1 is 1, and we keep our denominator of 4, and then you have an answer of a quarter. Okay, so as you can see, guys, we exercised 3 steps. Okay, we exercised 3 steps, so we're gonna get into it again. Okay, let's go for a number here. Okay, okay, and let's go maybe for a smaller number on this denominator over here. Okay, I'm gonna go for 2. Okay, Right, guys, so let's jump into this. We can either go the route of we're going to find the multiples of 5 and the multiples of 6, okay, which is a very nice route to go with, or you can just take the easier route and we can make them the same. Step number 1 by saying 6 times 5 and 5 times 6, okay, as I've just previously done when we did addition of fractions, okay. So that means what I did to my denominator on the right hand side, I'll have to do to my numerator, and similarly on my left hand side, what I did to my denominator, I'm going to do to my numerator. Right, so as we can see here, we want to get these denominators identical, okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say 8 times 6, okay. We're going to say 5 times 5, and then we're going to go 2 times 5, and we're going to go 6 times 5, okay. Okay, guys, so let's work from left to right. Okay, we know that 6 times 5 is going to give you 30, okay. We can bring our subtraction sign down, and we know that it's a minus, and then we can put to our other denominator, and we can say here on the right hand side 6 times 5 is going to give me 30. You guys with me? Okay, so now we're going to head over to our numerator on the right hand side, and we're going to say 8 times 6, okay, and that's going to give you 48. And then we're going to go on the right hand side 2 times 5, and that's going to give you 10. Okay, guys, so again we are back at the same scenario here, where we have now our common denominator, okay. Alright, I hope I'm going slow enough for you guys, okay. I don't want to go fast, I don't want to rush this, there's no need. In mathematics, there's no need to rush anything, okay. So we know we have a common denominator of 30, and on the numerator we're now going to subtract our 10 from 48, okay, and that's going to leave me with 48 minus 10, and that's going to give you 38, okay. So now you need to ask yourself, guys, can I make this small, okay? Can I get a highest common factor? Okay, so we can say that my HCF can be, in this case, seeing that they're both odd numbers, we can say we can divide this by 2, okay? Let me put that in a different color for you guys. Let's go with a different color, and let's say our HCF is 2. Okay, so what does that leave me with now? Okay, that will leave you with, apologies here, let me just get this right. Okay, that's your 2 there and your 2 here. Okay, divide by 2, divide by 2. Okay, so that's going to give you 38. You can divide by 2, and that's going to give you 19. Okay, and we can say 30 divided by 2, and that's going to give you 15. Okay, and we can quite clearly see, guys, we cannot make this fraction any more simplified. Okay, this is its simplest, at its most simplest form. Without putting it as a mixed fraction, that would be its most simplest form. Okay, let's get into another example here for you guys. Okay, Alright guys, so again, we are gonna get our denominators the same. Okay, and how are we gonna go about that? We're gonna get the LCM. In this case, it would be 3. Okay, so we're gonna multiply this by 3. And what we do to our denominators, we do to our numerators. Okay, if you want, you can multiply this by 1 and by 1. Okay, again, what do we sit with here? 1 times 2 on the right hand side. Okay, let's do our denominators first. We know we're going to bring this minus sign down here, the subtraction sign here. And then we're going to have another denominator here. So on the right hand side, we have 1 times 3, which is going to give you 3. Here we have 1 times 3, which is going to give you 3. And now you can see they are identical. And then we go to our right hand side, we can say 1 times 2 is 2. And 3 times 3 is 3. Okay. Unfortunately, in this case now, you're going to sit with a negative fraction. Okay. Why do I say that? Because we have a common denominator of 3, and on the numerator on the right hand side, the number is greater than the number on the left hand side. Okay. So this is going to give me a minus number. So 2 minus 3 is going to give me minus 1. And I can keep my denominator. Okay. So let's look at this. Let's look at this. This is a number line, right? We start at 0. So we were in the position of 2. Okay. And what we're doing is we are subtracting 3 from 2. Okay. So we are in this position here. So we are 2 and we're saying we're going to minus 3. So that's 1, 2, 3. And as you can see, that is why we were left with a negative 1. Okay. Right guys, we are going to move on to multiplication. Of fractions. Okay. So the nice thing about multiplication of fractions is, I would say it's the most easiest one. It doesn't have a lot of rules. Okay, so we can quite simply say that a half times a quarter, the easiest thing about this is you multiply your numerator and you multiply your denominator. Okay, this is the nice thing about multiplication of fractions. Okay, so you can say 1 times 1 is 1. And 2 times 4 is going to give you 8. Okay. And that is the answer. So the nice thing about multiplication of fractions, okay, so you quite simply, you multiply the numerator by the numerator and the denominator by the denominator. Okay. Let's have a look at another sum over here. Okay, so again guys, like we said, we multiply the numerators and we multiply the denominators. Okay, so we're going to jump into that again. We can say 2 times 7, that's going to give you 14. And you can say 4 times 5, and that's going to give you 20. Okay, and here you can do a HCF. Okay, so what is your HCF, guys? Your HCF in this case would be 2. Okay, so we know 14 divided by 2 is going to give you 7, and 20 divided by 2 is going to give you 10. Okay, and now it's in its most simplest form. Okay, let's do one more and then we can move on to division of fractions. Okay, guys, so like I say, you can play around with any numbers, any number that you wish to play around with. Okay, let's just get this looking properly over here. Okay, again, we multiply our numerators, we multiply our denominators. So 8 times 2 is going to give you 16, and 2 times 4 is going to give you 8. And we know that 8 goes into 16 twice. Okay, so your answer is a nice whole number over there of 2. Okay, so we're going to move on to, we're going to remove this, and we're going to move on to division of fractions. Okay, so division and multiplication, they are like the inverse of one another. They are like like addition is to subtraction. Okay, so if you have, again, a nice simple fraction here, and I like to use the example of a half and a quarter. Okay, division has a rule. Okay, it has a very, very easy rule, and like I say, division holds hands with multiplication because they work together. Okay, so division, you are gonna flip the fraction on the right hand side. Okay, you're gonna take 4 up and you're gonna bring 1 down. Okay, so what happens here is you keep this fraction the same. Okay, and because you're flipping 4 and 1, the sign flips. Okay, because you are flipping 4 and 1, your sign will flip. Okay, because you are flipping 4 and 1, your sign will flip. So what happens is it's gonna flip to multiplication. 4 is gonna go to the numerator, and 1 is gonna come down to the denominator. Okay, and now we have again a multiplication of fractions. So 1 times 4 is gonna give you 4, and 2 times 1 is gonna give you 2, and we know that 2 goes into 4 twice. Okay, and your answer is 2. Right? Let's try that again, guys. Okay, let's try that again. You see, maths is getting fun now, it's getting exciting. We are learning something new. Okay, and we're gonna go with, again, just random numbers over here. Okay, and we're gonna do the same thing again. We are gonna keep this fraction the same. Okay, we're not gonna work with that just yet. Then we are gonna flip these two's position, and because we flip those two's position, the sign changes. Okay, so now because 5 goes down and 4 comes up, the division changes to multiplication. 4 goes up and 5 comes down. Okay, so now we have again a multiplication of fractions. Okay, and quite simply put again, guys, we multiply the numerator and we multiply the denominator. Okay, let's do it. Okay, 2 times 4, that's going to give you 8, and 7 times 5, that's going to give you 35. Okay, guys, and that is all for today. I hope we've learned something new, guys. Please like the video, subscribe, share, and until we meet again, bye.